we're going to try and do this reading as short and efficiently and effectively as possible. And the reason being is that I want this transmission to be a symbolic representation of how you impact those around you, because I'm hearing even in your short or brief encounters, they're extremely impactful and also pivotal for a soul's journey. So the message we have is the World card. Now the World card in this deck also talks about life on Earth, but what I was hearing was that your presence actually stretches across the planet. And why it fits perfectly when we talk about the World archetype is because this is a being whose field has expanded beyond the personal. Like, this isn't even personal, this is on a soul level, okay? It's not, and when I talk about personal to the self, I'm feeling like this is a mission that extends and expands far beyond you. It feels like this is something that you've done across also many parallel lifetimes that are bleeding into this one. And this is about cosmic beings incarnating into this earth, and in this very dense material plane, it's like this heavy weighted blanket, and it's so comfortable to just fall asleep here. And in that process, you can forget your own etheric origins and also the intentions that you had planted for yourself before this incarnation. And this is about a being who suddenly becomes buoyant in the system, which is to become less dense in the medium they're immersed in, and they can receive interdimensional or higher dimensional, information or guidance as they navigate their life on Earth. And that completely shifts the way that they relate to their journey on Earth emotionally. And I'm hearing you have that profound impact on those around you. But your presence stretches across the globe. I'm going to go ahead and read this depiction to you, right? And then we're going to continue. So, completion, success, and fulfillment and harmony. The world and life on Earth represent fulfillment and completion. You've made it to the end of whatever you've set out to do, and a new cycle is approaching. Before you waltz off into your next journey, be sure to take a minute to bask in your success. You've wanted this for so long, and now it's finally here, so allow yourself to revel in it. So I feel like, first of all, waking up is going to be like a huge completion point already, just to become a fractal of awareness that's totally conscious of itself and its interconnectedness to all things as it navigates this construct. That's a huge accomplishment just on its own. So your two biggest days are the one that you were seeded onto this planet, and the second one is when you remember your why. And it feels like not only are you remembering your why, but you're actually making an effort to completely come into alignment with your why, where you become a living example or embodiment of that why. This isn't about fame, it's simply about resonance, and it feels like there's so many resonant networks, and these networks are also connected with opportunities and people and experiences that are completely on the same wavelength. And I'm seeing like broadband as you are, and if you think about broadband, it's usually a huge database or connecting network that has many other, but it all comes from the same distributor. That, at least that's the way that I'm seeing it. When we talk about the living embodiment of the World card, they've integrated enough versions of themselves that their presence transmits this cohesion. It also stabilizes timelines, right? Because what you intend to experience, and as soon as you intend to experience that, and you're certain that you want to experience that certainty collapses timelines instantaneously. And there's something about your certainty that stabilizes another being's timeline, just because that certainty is also being mirrored through you. It's like you begin to mirror that infinite potential and what that could look like, to the point where that embodiment kind of becomes contagious, So I'm seeing it would be silly to navigate life any other way than being certain of what your potential is. Anyway, it also shows someone that completes cycles for others simply by just existing in alignment, right? You unconsciously give those around you permission to do the same. So the phrase is, your presence stretches across the planet. That was the message I was getting, because you're no longer operating from simply just one location or one identity or one timeline. Instead, it represents an energetical global reach, because you're tuning in with so many different fractals and octaves of yourself, simply because you welcome change. I'm seeing it as you're someone that's changed so much when it comes to just like one lifetime alone. So we're going to see what this is. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at Gateway of the Light activation card and see. Okay, there we go. That's the presence. Pleiadian activation. So this talks about actually coming together, harmony in the heavens, and resolution. Now, the one message from this card specifically, especially with the light codes here at the base too, is the Pleiadians are actually more non-physical beings than they are physical, and it's because they begin to clear up that dense debris and matter where they can operate from these higher planes of existence, if you will. So it feels like you're not someone that's escaping this world. Instead, you're seeing through the illusions of it clearly, and in doing that, you also reflect that natural state of being that helps you remember everything else is an illusion, right? So for example, limitations are an illusion. You are a limitless being. And there's just examples like that I'm seeing. I'm seeing this as higher dimensional beings experiencing themselves through form. So this is simultaneous entities that you're also interconnected with and that you're not separate from, only under an illusion of being so. And fourth dimensional objects cast a shadow, and that's what we call a third dimensional objects. So I'm seeing this as a fourth dimensional being that is then casting this dimensionally limited third dimensional avatar for it to experience life on earth through. So that's the contrast, that's the shadow, that's the polarity and the illusion of separation, where we experience falling asleep just to awaken, right? We experience things slowly just so we get to experience things rapidly. That's what I'm seeing, where there's almost again, imagine like a higher dimensional being. Again, in this energy we have a Pleiadian, expansive, and it's unified, and it's timeless, right? And it's in a naive state where it experiences no separation, no opposition, no lack, no contrast. Everything is whole and everything is known and everything simply is. But wholeness alone cannot experience itself. So the being does something extraordinary and it begins to project a shadow. Okay. And the shadow is not a mistake. It actually becomes an interface for it to experience life on earth in this third dimensional plane, right? Where you experience contrast for rapid soul expansion. And the shadow is not evil. It's not even a flaw. It's not something that is designed to destroy in any way. Instead, the shadow is just the ego self. It is the third dimensional identity that's literally designed for you to experience separation from those around you. Also to forget about unity. That's a huge thing. And encounter contrast. Okay, we experience lack just to be able to experience abundance. Again, we experience falling asleep just to experience the awakening process. And it's designed for you to feel this limitation, right? That's where we incarnate into a dimensionally limited avatar that is only subject to seeing less than 1% of the light spectrum, where suddenly you can only tune into very limited ranges of dimensions, okay, unless you tune into your higher octaves that also again simultaneously exist within you. And that allows you to navigate time. That would allow you to navigate the journey of getting from point A to point B. Otherwise, you'd be in both places simultaneously when you're operating from a higher dimension of time. So through the shadow, the higher being can finally experience choice, right? It gets to actually experience the journey of its choices. That is the beauty of the third dimension. It gets to experience discovery, right? The journey of those choices and where it leads them. Also how not choosing that thing leads to a different sequence of events. That's the beauty that we have in this third dimensional plane. We get to experience tension and desire and fear and love, and without the shadow, experience would just be something that's extremely static. Otherwise there would just be wholeness, there would just be oneness, there would be no illusion of separation around I experience not having this thing just to see the journey of what it's like in order to be able to attain this thing. So how the projection works when it comes to fourth dimension and also third dimension is that the higher being does not enter into the third dimension directly. Instead, it projects itself through its perception, through its memory, emotion, and also identity. So these are higher archetypes within this universe. And this projection happens through the fourth dimension, which is the realm of time, also narrative and meaning. And the ego lives there. The ego is not the being, it's the lens that the being is experiencing life on earth through. Okay, so this is a fourth dimensional being experiencing a third dimensional reality. Let's go ahead and read Pleiadian energy. The Pleiades is known as the 7 star sisters. This gateway transports us to a space where we can witness the great coming together of the Pleiades. Each and every single star within the cluster is a representation of a nation of divine beings. The Pleiadians are said to be human-like beings who honor the feminine and live in an advanced way that we on Earth could also experience if we were to accept and honor the holiness of the female body. If we were able to travel to the Pleiades in the third dimensional world, we would not find these beings. However, for they have transcended the physical state and operate in a higher vibration. The Pleiadian energy is about coming together in peace and in harmony. You are blessed to receive this gateway. It is a powerful message of assurance that whatever uncomfortable energy you're experiencing right now will soon be washed away. The Pleiades are beings who live in complete honor of their planets and their people. They acknowledge that in seeing and connecting with one another, they have an opportunity to see and experience the divine. They also know the consequences of disrespecting others, and for this reason, it's no longer possible for them. If you're being called or challenged by loved ones now, aim to shift the dynamics of this relationship through a loving approach. The lesson that you're facing at this time is the opportunity to heal old wounds and operate from a higher state of being. The message I was also receiving when it comes to this is that's why third dimensional beings cannot perceive fourth dimensional being, because they're operating in higher bandwidths of frequency light, and our dimensionally limited avatars' eyes can only see 1% of the light spectrum, if even that. And when you attune to your multisensory perception system, which is your third eye or lens of the soul, you can actually see what's existing all around you in higher bandwidths of frequency, right? These are the dimensions that you're also coexisting with. In this way, you can think of the ego as almost the character in the story. It's like the character that you get to play, because it's going from the 12th dimension, which is your connection to higher realms, something that branches and extends beyond this matrix essentially, and it's how you manifest from the non-physical into the physical, right? The first house is the ascendant, it's the avatar that you'll take on, it's the way that a fourth dimensional being will experience itself in the third dimension through this lens, right? So this character believes that this story is real, and that danger is real, and that the stakes are, you know, absolute in this realm. But the higher being is the one that's watching, and it knows that this is an experience, and it's an exploration. It's something that's extremely intentional. And I'm just seeing intercommunication that you have with a fourth dimensional being, right? An entity that is also you, that you're under an illusion of separation from, and it's an octave within you that you're able to attune to. And from a higher level, you can see the full landscape of time and space when it comes to the story of your life, and your intuition and your heart is leading you and guiding you when it comes to your chosen direction in the way that the intellect cannot fully understand, right? In the way that the ego or the limited mind cannot fully understand and will be playing catch up with. And this is teaching you trust, right? Trusting in the unseen, trusting how it is that you're being led. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because this profound sense of self-trust that you've been able to cultivate is something that's extremely inspirational in how you guide yourself through this existence. How you lead yourself is also encouraging those around you and mirroring to those around you, where it is that they can also trust themselves and they can also become their own source, right, when it comes to that trust. So this character must forget that the Watcher even exists in order to fully be immersed in this experience. Otherwise, the story begins to collapse. So forgetting is something, when we talk about the World card, that is really, really important, right? It's something that's actually essential to be a part of this gameplay experience. And contrast is also necessary, because it's in contrast that a higher being gets to learn about itself. It's light that understands itself through darkness. It's love that understands itself through loss. Freedom that understands itself through limitation, oftentimes. So the ego experiences fear just so that courage can exist, right? The light and dark aren't forces that are versing each other. They are in actual harmony, right? This is about finding balance and beauty in that paradox that we're existing in. Separation exists just so that connection can also be remembered. You know, we experience this fractalization just to be able to experience this reunification with ourselves. We experience pain just so that we can become more compassionate. You know, compassionate to those who are also going through something that maybe we have also overcome. That's often that chironic wound, or hasn't overcome, but something that we can relate to if we're talking about chiron. But the shadow gives that texture to consciousness itself. Awakening is not about, you know, destroying the shadow or even escaping the shadow in any way, because that would be destroying the ego, which is literally a vessel of possibility for you to experience life in this terrestrial plane. Instead, it's about realizing what the ego truly is. And I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions in regards to what is the ego really, and is it something that's bad? You know, how do we begin to integrate the ego? The moment that the higher being begins to wake up inside of this character, right, inside of this ego, something begins to shift. And the story continues in your life, and the emotions still arise, right? And the world still has form. However, there is less fear, because you're tuning into something deeper within yourself that allows you to navigate this matrix, but becoming buoyant, less dense in the medium you're immersed in, because the awareness that you have extends and branches beyond this system, which has the illusion of limitations, and you remember yourself as a being that is limitless while being in a world that has the illusion of limitations. The reason there's less fear is because the shadow now knows that it's cast by something eternal. So the shadow then becomes a sacred tool. The shadow becomes something that we begin to integrate the moment that we see that the ego was never actually meant to rule. Instead, it was meant to translate. It was supposed to become the interface between realms. It translates the infinite into a finite form. And it translates timelessness into moments through time that we'll experience. It also translates unity into, you know, a subjective story that we get to experience. So when the ego forgets this role, suffering often increases, right? Because the pain in which we're experiencing will become more painful when we don't grow from it, when we don't grow through the things that we go through. And when the ego remembers its shadow, it begins to relax. You know, it remembers, okay, I am just a shadow. I am cast from a fourth dimensional being, you know, I'm connected with something that extends and branches, and I actually originate from somewhere that extends and branches far beyond the system while being immersed in this, this system. And then this becomes a different kind of gameplay experience. So imagine in a video game when the main character recognizes and remembers that they have free will, you know. So when it relaxes, the higher being actually begins to experience the world through clarity and compassion, because you can actually see your life on earth from this higher level of awareness. You know, you can really become immersed in this experience, and not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of unity, experiencing the illusion of separation. And you also remember that in that moment, that another illusion is also fear in this realm. Our fears are also an illusion. So the ultimate paradox becomes that the higher dimensional being can actually not experience not just life in this terrestrial plane without the shadow, but it can't experience contrast without the shadow. Because how would a being of light know that it's light without its shadow, right? So the shadow can't exist without that higher being, and they're not enemies. They actually become partners in co-creation in that moment. And it's not something that happens outside of you, beyond you. You know, we say that because it's what the logical mind kind of formats things as, but it's something that happens within you. You know, yeah, you're not your shadow. You are a being of light that's casting that shadow, but the shadow is how you came here to experience yourself. And there's something about the integration with your shadow when we talk about the world card, and then also Pleiadian activation, that's helping you move through chaotic energy. You know, it's helping you see the cosmos within the chaos, or a secret order to something that may appear disorderly to the human mind. And it's finding peace in that 0 point, recognizing yourself as the ego, but simultaneously not it. It's simply being a vessel of possibility. And it changes your relationship to not just yourself, but also your potential in this plane. So, With that being said, guys, I'm gonna love and leave you right there. I hope that you enjoyed this reading and it gave you all the clarification that you need at this stage in your journey. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing because we'd love to have you around. Personal reading details are also down below. Also check out 𝓪𝓻𝓪𝓷 if you're looking for some high quality AAA grade jewelry. This is a small family owned business that handcraft these beautiful gemstones. $1 of the proceeds are donated towards 𝓪𝓻𝓪 sanctuaries. I have lapis lazuli, celestite, and also rainbow moonstone on today. And let me know, guys, what do you feel like the theme is happening in your life right now? I'd be very, very curious to see. Until next time, bye.